What if I told you the very things you're tossing in the trash right now could actually be worth more than gold when society collapses? Sounds crazy, right? But stick with me, because I'm not talking about shiny gadgets, high-tech gear, or those overpriced doomsday kits survival companies are pushing. I'm talking about 9 simple, dirt-cheap household items. Things you probably already have lying around, maybe even sitting in your garbage can, that could literally save your life when the grid goes down. Here's the reality. When disaster strikes, people rush to panic buy generators, bottled water, freeze-dried meals, and whatever's left on the shelves. But in all that chaos, they're overlooking the small, everyday items that will quietly become priceless. I'm talking about the stuff no one's thinking twice about right now. But once the lights go out and supply trucks stop rolling, these things suddenly become your lifeline. Think about where we are right now. Inflation is through the roof, supply chains are shaky, and experts estimate that more than 20 million Americans are actively prepping for 2025. This isn't some Hollywood apocalypse movie or a distant what if. This is real life, right here, right now. And if you're not preparing in smart, cost-effective ways, you're going to be caught off guard while others are cashing in on what they saved. That's why today I'm breaking down 9 everyday items you can grab for almost nothing. Items that could end up more valuable than gold when it's HTF. And trust me, you're not going to want to miss number 9. Because it's something most people literally throw away every single day, yet in a collapse, it could power your tools, save your family, and even become one of the most in-demand barter items you'll ever own. Let's dive in. 1. Glass jars. The forgotten survival currency. Let's start with something you probably tossed in the recycling bin this week without even thinking twice. Glass jars. Yeah, those pasta sauce jars, pickle jars, and jelly jars that most people treat as disposable. Here's the truth. Those trash items could become one of the most valuable resources you own if society takes a nosedive. Why? Because when the world collapses, storage isn't just convenient, it's survival. Glass jars are airtight, durable, and reusable. They don't leach toxins like plastic does, and they can last for decades if you treat them right. Imagine a world where bottled water isn't delivered to your doorstep, grocery shelves are stripped bare, and food needs to be rationed carefully. Suddenly, that jar you used for leftover salsa becomes the container for clean drinking water, seeds for next year's crops, or even homemade medicine. Here's a scary stat. FEMA has repeatedly said most households don't even have enough containers to store 3 days' worth of drinking water. And plastic? It cracks, breaks down, and leaches chemicals over time. Glass, on the other hand, stays safe. It doesn't change the taste of what's inside, and it can be sanitized with just boiling water. Still think I'm exaggerating? Look at Venezuela's collapse. People literally traded empty bottles and jars for food and medicine. Containers became currency, because what good is rice or beans if you don't have anything to store them in? In a barter economy, a jar could buy you a meal. Think about that. And versatility is the real kicker. That old pickle jar, it's your seed vault. That jelly jar, it's perfect for canning fruits or storing vinegar you make at home. A big pasta sauce jar, that's your emergency water filter container. So before you toss another one, start saving them now. Because when the shelves go empty and chaos hits, a simple glass jar might just keep your family alive. 2. Old cotton shirts. Fabric that fights for you. Next up, let's talk about that faded, hole-ridden cotton t-shirt stuffed in the back of your closet. Most people see it as trash. In reality, it's one of the most underrated survival tools you already own. Here's why. Cotton is insanely versatile. Tear it up and suddenly you've got bandages, water filters, dust masks, fire-starting tinder, or even makeshift rope. Sounds over the top? Not at all. FEMA itself recommends cotton fabric as a last resort emergency mask when respirators aren't available. That means your old gym shirt could actually protect your lungs in a dust storm, wildfire, or even a toxic spill. And let's be honest, disasters don't come with warnings. Now think medical. Hospitals overwhelmed, first aid kits sold out. What do? That t-shirt becomes a bandage for bleeding, a compress for swelling, or strips for a tourniquet. In fact, a prepping survey found that more than 60% of households reported shortages of basic medical supplies in recent crises. But every home has at least a few cotton shirts. They're literally hiding in plain sight, waiting to be repurposed into survival gear. And cotton doesn't stop there. It insulates. You can stuff it into clothing for warmth, It absorbs, you can use it to filter water through layers of cloth before purifying. It binds, you can cut it into strips to tie down gear or patch up broken straps. And yes, it even burns. Cotton makes great tinder for fire starting if you have nothing else. Think about how many t-shirts get tossed every year. Millions. All that fabric wasted. Meanwhile, preppers on Reddit and survival forums swear by cotton rags as one of their go-to multi-purpose tools. So here's the bottom line. Before you trash that faded band tee, toss it in a survival bin instead. Because in a collapse, cotton shirts aren't just clothing. They're your first aid kit, your filter system, your dust mask, and your backup rope rolled into one. And the best part, they're free. Because you already own them. There's your baking soda. The dollar store miracle powder. Now let's move on to something that looks boring but is anything but baking soda. You've probably got a box sitting in the back of your pantry right now. Maybe deodorizing your fridge. But let me tell you, this dirt cheap white powder is a collapse multi-tool hiding in plain sight. Here's the deal. Baking soda or sodium bicarbonate is one of the most versatile and effective household supplies you can stockpile. It costs pennies per ounce, but its uses stretch across cleaning, hygiene, first aid, and even fire safety. That's 4 survival categories in one product. Let's start with hygiene. In a collapse, you're not buying toothpaste, deodorant, or soap at the store. Baking soda does it all. It scrubs teeth, kills odor, and works as a body cleaner when nothing else is available. Staying clean isn't just about comfort, it's about preventing infections. Now cleaning. Without chemical cleaners, surfaces and dishes can become breeding grounds for bacteria. Baking soda is non-toxic, safe, and powerful. Mix it with water and suddenly you've got an all-purpose scrub that works on pots, pans, and even your own hands. Here's where it gets serious. First aid. According to the CDC, baking soda can help neutralize acid burns from things like leaking batteries or chemical spills. That's not just a household hack, that's potentially life-saving. And let's not forget, fire safety. Sprinkle it on small kitchen fires and it releases carbon dioxide, suffocating the flames. When you don't have a fire extinguisher handy, that $1 box could stop disaster in its tracks. Still think it's just for baking cookies? Picture this. No cleaners, no first aid creams, no deodorant, no fire extinguisher. But you've got baking soda. Suddenly, that little box is worth its weight in silver, and unlike some fancy survival gear, it's cheap, shelf-stable, and everywhere right now. So do yourself a favor. Stock up, because in a world where every resource counts, baking soda isn't just pantry filler. It's a survival powerhouse that costs less than your morning coffee. 4 safety pins and paper clips. The tiny metal lifesavers. Let's talk about 2 items that almost everyone has lying around. Safety pins and paper clips. You probably think of them as boring office supplies, right? Just stuff to hold papers together or keep your shirt from gaping. But in a collapse, these tiny overlooked bits of metal could be absolute game changers. Think about safety pins first. They're tough, they're compact, and they're ridiculously versatile. Got ripped clothing? Fix it in seconds. Tarp ripped open in a storm? Pin it shut. Gear strap breaks while you're on the move? Safety pin saves the day. And here's the survival twist. If you're desperate, they can even be bent into makeshift fish hooks. More than one prepper has admitted they've caught dinner with nothing but a safety pin, some cord and patience. Now let's flip to paper clips. People laugh when I say this, but paper clips might be the most underrated survival tool in existence. With a little bending, they can become lockpicks, emergency gear fasteners, trap triggers, or even tiny makeshift screwdrivers. One prepper showed how he turned a paperclip into an antenna for his emergency radio. Proof that these aren't just office clutter, they're flexible tools hiding in plain sight. Here's a stat that should wake you up. According to Reddit, 61% of households don't have any repair kits or sewing supplies on hand. That means when zippers break, straps snap, or gear rips, most people are left helpless. But a simple box of safety pins and paper clips, something you can grab for under $2, gives you dozens of ways to repair, improvise, and survive. And don't underestimate the barter value. In a collapse economy, where everything is about fixing and reusing, these tiny metal items could trade like candy. Do you really want to be the guy giving away flashlight batteries because you can't patch a tarp, or the one quietly fixing your gear in the dark with a safety pin while others scramble? Bottom line, stock up, toss a handful in your bug-out bag, your car, and your junk drawer. They weigh almost nothing, but when the grid fails, safety pins and paper clips might just be the sharpest survival tools you own. 5. Bar soap. The hygiene gold bar. Now, let's get into something so ordinary you probably haven't thought twice about it in years. Bar soap. I know what you're thinking. Soap? Really? But trust me on this. In a world without running water, working hospitals, or stocked shelves, that little bar of soap is no longer boring. It's priceless. Here's why. Hygiene isn't optional in survival. It's life or death. According to the CDC, millions die each year worldwide from diseases linked to poor hygiene. That's with hospital antibiotics and sanitation systems in place. Imagine what happens when those systems vanish overnight. Suddenly, a small cut on your hand can turn into a deadly infection. And what's your first line of defense? Soap. Bar soap has so many things going for it. It doesn't expire quickly. It doesn't need electricity or batteries, and it takes up almost no space. Unlike liquid soap, it won't spill or freeze easily, and a single bar can last weeks if rationed. Wash your hands, clean wounds, scrub cookware, or even do laundry with it. It's the definition of multi-purpose. And here's a real-world example. During Venezuela's collapse, soap became a black market currency. People were literally trading it for food and medicine. That's how valuable it gets when supply chains collapse. It's not about smelling good, it's about staying alive. Some survivalists call soap the most overlooked barter item in prepping. And I agree. When everyone's worried about food and ammo, hygiene gets ignored. But in the second month of a collapse, when infections start spreading, soap becomes survival gold. Here's a pro tip. Skip the fancy scented bars. Stick to plain, unscented soap. It's more versatile, lasts longer, and won't irritate wounds. Stockpile it cheap now. Dollar Tree, Walmart, even bulk packs on Amazon. Because when the grid fails, you're going to wish you had more. So the next time you see that boring little bar sitting on your sink, look at it differently. It's not just hygiene, it's protection, prevention, and possibly even currency in a collapsed world. 6. Cotton rope and twine. The strings that hold it all together. Now let's move to something so simple, it often gets ignored. Cotton rope and twine. I get it. It's not flashy, like a generator, or as cool as a survival knife, but rope is one of the oldest, most reliable survival tools in human history. And cotton twine is the cheap, overlooked cousin you'll regret not having. First off, shelter. When your tarp blows loose or you need to rig up a lean-to, rope is non-negotiable. No cordage, no shelter. Cotton rope and twine can tie down tarps, secure poles, or even bundle branches together to make a frame. In fact, survival instructors list rope as one of the core 5 essentials in wilderness survival for a reason. It's that important. But that's just the start. Cotton rope can make animal snares, haul gear, or suspend food away from scavengers. Got wet clothes? String a clothesline. Injured person? Lash together poles, and you've got an emergency stretcher. Rope is literally the tool that multiplies all your other tools. Here's something most people don't realize. Cotton rope isn't just strong, it's also flammable when frayed. That means the same twine you use to tie your shelter could also start your fire in an emergency. Paracord gets a lot of hype in the prepping community, but cotton twine is softer, biodegradable, and dirt cheap. You can buy rolls for $1 at hardware or dollar store. A 2025 FEMA study found that over 60% of households don't even own basic cordage. That means most people are one ripped tent or one broken backpack strap away from being stranded. Meanwhile, preppers online are vacuum sealing spools of cotton twine to keep them dry and compact, or weaving them into bracelets and belts for wearable survival gear. Smart move. And don't overlook barter value. In a collapse, when improvisation is survival, rope will be hoarded and traded like ammo. Think about it. Which would you rather trade, your last can of beans or a spool of twine that cost you $1 today? So take a look at your garage or junk drawer. If you don't have rope, fix that now. Because when the world falls apart, cotton twine won't just tie things together. It might be the thing that keeps your entire survival plan from unraveling. 7. The office underdogs, binder clips and rubber bands. Now, let's talk about 2 items you probably never thought of as survival gear. Binder clips and rubber bands. Sounds boring, right? Just dusty little office supplies sitting in your junk drawer. But here's the thing. In a collapse, These tiny, dirt-cheap items transform into survival superstars. They're lightweight, insanely versatile, and so overlooked that most people wouldn't even think to stockpile them. Big mistake. Let's start with binder clips. Those little black clamps you use to keep a stack of papers together. In a survival situation, they're like miniature clamps that can save your gear again and again. Need to seal a bag of seeds or wild edibles? Binder clip. Tarp got ripped in a storm? Binder clip. Even something as simple as keeping your food bags closed so critters don't get in. Yep, binder clip. Preppers online swear by them for emergency repairs, bundling firewood, patching tents, or even rigging a makeshift water filter by clamping layers of fabric together. They're reusable, durable, and a box of 50 will cost you just a few bucks. That's a bargain for something that could literally keep your food supply intact. Now, rubber bands. At first glance, they're just stretchy little loops of nothing. But when supplies run out, their flexibility becomes a survival advantage. Think about it. You can use rubber bands to organize gear, improvise a fishing lure, or even create a quick grip on slippery tools. In an absolute emergency, they can double as a temporary medical tool, like a tourniquet to slow bleeding until you get proper help. And here's a survival hack that most people don't know: rubber bands actually burn. Light one up and you've got a flame that lasts about 2 minutes, just enough to ignite damp tinder and get a fire going. That's not just handy, that's life-saving. The real magic here is how little space they take. Toss a handful of rubber bands and a box of binder clips into your bug-out bag, and you've got dozens of survival solutions that weigh next to nothing. Imagine you're out foraging after the power grid collapses. You've gathered wild greens, maybe some berries. Binder clips seal your containers tight. Rubber bands help label and organize what you've found, and when it's time to cook, a rubber band gets your fire started despite damp wood. These aren't just office supplies anymore, they're survival tools hiding in plain sight. So next time you're at the store, grab them. They cost pennies now, but in a collapse, they'll be priceless. 8. White vinegar, the survival liquid nobody thinks about. Alright, moving on to something sitting quietly in your pantry right now: white vinegar. Most people think of it as just that cheap liquid you splash on salads or maybe use for cleaning. But let me tell you, vinegar might be one of the most underrated survival essentials out there, and here's the kicker: it literally lasts forever. No expiration date, no refrigeration, just buy it, stash it, and it'll be ready when you need it. Why does that matter? Because in a collapse, shelf life is everything. Most supplies go bad, food spoils, medicine expires, even bottled water can get funky after years. But white vinegar, as long as you keep it sealed and stored in a cool, dark place, it'll outlast just about anything else in your pantry. That's huge when survival depends on what you've got tucked away. Now, let's break down what vinegar can actually do for you. First off, clean. When the bleach and disinfectants run out, vinegar steps up. It can sanitize surfaces, dissolve grime, cut through rust, and even fight mold. In a world where hygiene could mean the difference between life and death, a bottle of vinegar is like liquid gold. Second, food preservation. Vinegar is the main ingredient in pickling, and that's a survival game changer. You can pickle cucumbers, onions, cabbage, and more, extending their shelf life without refrigeration. Imagine pulling out a jar of pickled veggies months into a grid-down situation when everyone else is starving. That's the power of vinegar. Third, pest control. Vinegar repels ants, fruit flies, and even mold. Spray it around your shelter, and you've got a natural, chemical-free defense when pesticides are no longer an option. And here's something a lot of people overlook. Vinegar is also a barter item. In a collapse, not only will it serve you, but it'll be something other people desperately want. Food preserver, cleaner, pest repellent, barter currency, all in one cheap bottle you can grab for less than $2. So here's the bottom line. While most people panic buy expensive gear, you should quietly be stacking vinegar. Cheap, versatile, and basically immortal. White vinegar might look boring today, but in a survival situation, it's nothing short of a miracle liquid. 9. Dead car batteries. Junk or hidden treasure. Now, for the one that shocks most people. Dead lead-acid car batteries. You know, the heavy old things sitting in your garage collecting dust. Most folks see them as useless hunks of junk. But in a collapse, those dead batteries could be one of the most valuable resources you own. Here's why. Inside every lead-acid battery are lead plates, and lead doesn't just disappear when the battery dies. In fact, in normal times, 99% of lead-acid batteries get recycled, and over 80% of new batteries are made from recycled lead. Why? Because lead is incredibly valuable. If supply chains collapse, new batteries won't be produced at scale. Suddenly, that old useless battery in your garage becomes a treasure chest of raw material. Preppers have even shared stories about salvaging lead plates to create weights, tools, and even simple DIY power projects. It's dangerous work, but in a desperate situation, that's survival thinking. Then there's the acid. Normally, sulfuric acid is dangerous, no question about it. But with proper knowledge, it can be neutralized using baking soda or even wood ash. Once neutralized, it can be repurposed for tasks like cleaning rust off metal or helping in small-scale metal purification. There are even survival uses for it in preserving food under extreme conditions. Again, not for the untrained, but the potential is there. And don't forget the casing. That thick plastic shell isn't just junk. It can be reused for storage, insulation, or even makeshift containers. In a world where resources are limited, nothing goes to waste. But here's the part that really drives this home. The global market for recycling lead-acid batteries was worth over $112 billion in 2024, and it's projected to double in the next decade. That tells you just how much value is hidden in these so-called dead batteries, even in normal time. Now imagine their worth in a collapse when demand for power sources skyrockets and production halts. Your old battery could become a high-value barter item, or even the foundation for a DIY off-grid power solution. Of course, a word of caution, handling lead and sulfuric acid is dangerous. You don't want to mess with it unless you know exactly what you're doing. But storing a few dead batteries safely, that's smart prepping. You don't have to strip them down today. Just keep them out of the landfill, because when the world goes sideways, those heavy blocks of junk could suddenly become your most valuable assets. So don't toss them, store them. Learn a little about how they work, because in a collapse, dead car batteries won't just be junk, they'll be survival treasure. 10. Aluminum foil. The shiny survival shield. Think about that roll of aluminum foil sitting in your kitchen drawer right now. You probably use it to wrap leftovers or line a baking tray, right? But here's what most people don't realize. In a collapse, that shiny roll turns into one of the most versatile survival tools you'll ever own. Lightweight, flexible, heat-resistant foil isn't just kitchen junk, it's survival gold. Let's talk cooking first. In a grid-down world, pots and pans won't always be practical. Aluminum foil lets you cook right over an open flame or hot coals. Wrap up meat, veggies, or even fish. Toss the packet into the fire, and you've got a hot meal with no dishes to scrub afterward. It also acts as a reflector. Build a fire, put up a foil wall, and suddenly you've got a heat shield that bounces warmth back at you. That can mean the difference between shivering through a cold night and actually staying warm. But cooking isn't the only trick. Aluminum foil can be folded into emergency tools. A funnel for pouring water, a cup for drinking, or even a patch for a cracked container. And when you need to signal for help, that reflective surface works like a signal mirror, flashing sunlight across long distances to catch someone's eye. Here's a hack that most people have no clue about. Foil boosts signals. Wrap it around a radio antenna or shape it into a parabolic reflector, and suddenly you're pulling in stations or extending Wi-Fi range. When communication is everything, that little trick could be a lifesaver. And don't forget the defensive uses. Rodents and pests hate aluminum foil. Stuff it in cracks, wrap it around food storage, and you've got a cheap, effective barrier. Waterproof, fire-resistant, and virtually indestructible in storage. It doesn't expire, it doesn't degrade, and it takes up almost no space. For a few bucks, you can grab a jumbo roll that'll last years. But in a collapse, that same roll will be worth its weight in gold. Stockpile it now, and when the lights go out, you'll be the one cooking, warming, signaling, and surviving with ease. 11. Ziploc bags. The unsung storage lifesavers. Next up, Ziploc bags. The clear plastic pouches you probably only think of for sandwiches or leftovers. But here's the truth. In survival, these little bags punch way above their weight. If you're not hoarding them now, you're missing out on one of the most practical and overlooked survival tools ever made. Why? Because Ziploc bags are waterproof, Airtight, lightweight, and durable. That combination is priceless when resources are scarce. Imagine you've got matches, a lighter, or even a small power bank you need to protect from rain. Toss them in a Ziploc and they're safe. Seeds for planting, spices for cooking, medicine you can't afford to lose. Ziploc bag. They're like little vaults for your survival essentials. But it gets better. These bags can double as water collection and purification tools. You can use them to gather rainwater, collect dew, or even fashion a solar still to distill drinking water. It's not the fastest method, but in an emergency, every sip counts. Plus, they make portion control easy. When food supplies are limited, rationing becomes critical, and Ziplocs let you store small portions so nothing gets wasted. Here's a pro-level hack. Ziploc First Aid Kit. Take a quart-sized bag, fill it with bandages, antiseptic wipes, and painkillers, and boom, you've got a pocket-sized med kit. Do the same for fire-starting supplies, sewing gear, or fishing tackle. Suddenly, your survival kit is modular, organized, and protected from the elements. And don't underestimate the value of Ziplocs for protecting important documents. Think maps, IDs, cash, or even a thumb drive with critical files. In a collapse, water damage could ruin everything. Ziploc bags give you a cheap, simple insurance policy against that. The best part, they're dirt-deep and almost weightless. You can buy a box of 100 for just a few bucks, and they'll last for years if stored properly. Plus, they're reusable. Wash them out, dry them, and use them again and again. When the grid goes down, staying organized and protecting your essentials is half the battle. And the humble Ziploc bag will be the unsung hero keeping your supplies safe, dry, and ready to use. 12. Duct tape. The survival Swiss Army knife. Finally, let's talk about the king of all fix-it tools, duct tape. This isn't just sticky silver tape. In a collapse, duct tape becomes the Swiss Army knife of survival. If you don't already have a stash of it, you're seriously underestimating how many problems this one cheap item can solve. Let's start with repairs. Got a hole in your tarp? Duct tape. Cracked water container? Duct tape. Broken shoe sole, ripped jacket, or a fraying rope? Yep, duct tape again. It sticks to almost anything, holds strong, and is waterproof. That makes it the go-to repair kit in a roll. But duct tape isn't just for fixing things, it can create things. Twist strips together, and you've got a makeshift rope. Pair it with a stick, and you've got a splint for an injured arm or leg. Need to seal off a room from rain, wind, or even smoke? Duct tape creates a near airtight barrier. Some preppers even use it to patch up leaky boats in an emergency. That's how strong this stuff is. Here's another trick: fire starting. A wadded-up strip of duct tape burns longer than you'd expect, making it a reliable tinder substitute when dry kindling is hard to find. In survival mode, that could be the difference between freezing and staying warm. And let's not forget the medical uses. While it's no substitute for real supplies, duct tape can secure bandages, hold gauze in place, or even create a makeshift sling. In the absence of proper medical tape, it's a lifesaver. The beauty of duct tape is its simplicity. You don't need special training, tools, or skills. You just need a roll. And the cost? Pennies compared to the value it brings in a crisis. A single roll can last for months, even with heavy use. And it stores easily in any bag or emergency kit. Think about it. When the world shuts down, the ability to fix, patch, seal, and improvise becomes priceless. Fancy survival gadgets might break, but duct tape keeps going. That's why it's not just a household item, it's a survival essential. So don't wait until it's too late. Grab a few rolls now, because in a collapse, duct tape won't just fix your problems, it might literally save your life. When it comes down to survival, it's not always the fancy gadgets or the overpriced gear that make the biggest difference. It's the simple, overlooked household items. The kind of stuff you'd normally toss in a drawer or even throw in the trash, that can end up being more valuable than gold when the grid goes down. From safety pins and soap to vinegar, foil, and duct tape, these 9 cheap essentials prove that real preparedness doesn't have to cost a fortune. Here's the truth. In a collapse, survival favors the resourceful, not the reckless spender. The people who thought ahead, who grabbed the dollar store items, who stocked up on what others ignored, those are the people who'll have the edge when shelves go bare. So take a hard look around your home. What's lying around right now that could save your life tomorrow? Because when SHTF, It won't be the latest gadget that keeps you alive. It'll be the smart, practical choices you made today. Stock up while you still can, stay sharp, and remember, in the world of survival, the smallest items can carry the biggest weight.